Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to use Practice Lab to prepare tax returns for the certification test or just practice tax returns. So what you're looking at is two screens. Here at the top is my home page, and at the bottom is one of the IRS publications that has practice return problems. So from my home page, you can get here. If you've received an email from me, if you click on my name at the bottom of that email message, it'll take you to this page. And then you click on Volunteer Tax, Online VITA Resources, and right here, Link and Learn Taxes Practice Lab, where you would have to log in with that universal password I mentioned in the previous video, and also with your Practice Lab user ID and zip code. And since I'm already logged in, you won't see my zip code I'm using and can't get into my account. But that's something you have to create a new user account to get that 6-digit Practice Lab user ID. So here is all the returns I've worked with, and I've been trying to do this recording a couple times already with Rose Hudson's return. I'm going to do it one more time for you. So I can't use the first three same digits that are given to us, but the last 6 digits again is going to be your user ID number for all of the tax returns you prepare using Practice Lab, and not my ID number. Excuse me. To start off a new return, you click on this new return button and the first thing they ask you is the Social Security number. So going into this workbook here, beginning on, I believe, on page 11, is Rose Hudson's interview sheet, and she would fill this out ahead of time, probably in pencil, and you would confirm the information here, the first 2 pages, first 3 pages, and then on page 4 is what you gotta fill in as the preparer if, here in section B, if the taxpayer is claiming any dependents. And I don't think Rose is doing that. Whoever's reviewing your return would use this section C as a checklist to determine if everything looks okay. And then we would look at some source documents like the Social Security card. Now we always got to make sure that number and that name is what's on the tax return, and if not, the tax return may be rejected. So be accurate now when you use that number and the name. Okay, some additional information were given for Rose as we interview her, and also more source documents like the W-2 form from her job and the 1099 form for her interest income. Okay, so going back to her Social Security card, I'm going to start it off here with her number 02. I'm not going to use 1 because I've already done it here. So I'm going to use another number like 3. Then the next 6 digits is going to be your user ID number, not mine now. Again, you get this when you apply for a Practice Lab account. And you do this twice just to confirm that the number is correct. Now the next step is to click on one of these buttons down here. This one will take you directly to the tax forms that we fill in, or to determine which tax forms that probably should be used, you can go through an interview process that asks you step-by-step questions that eventually will pull out the forms, but in the end you still go to the forms here. So I'll click on Go to Tax Forms. Now if Rose was here at Leeward College last year preparing her return, before you see this screen, this main information sheet, the computer would ask you whether you want to have information carried over from 2010 to now our 2011 tax return. And you would say yes. In this case, it didn't even ask us that because probably Rose was not here last year having her return prepared. Maybe she went to another site or did her own return. But it makes things fast if you can carry over things like names and addresses and employer names from year to year that possibly doesn't change. And all you got to do is confirm that they're still the same and enter the updated amounts. Red should attract your attention. Whenever there's something red, you got to look at it and make sure you try to turn off the red. So in this case, everybody has to have a name entered, so we enter Rose. I'm looking at her Social Security card down here, and I tab to move to the next field, Hudson. The Social Security number is already there, something we had entered when we started the return. In the next line, it's blank because it's not a joint return. Notice way up here, the 1040 is checked off. Even though the taxpayer may qualify for simpler returns, we default by using the main long form for all returns. Notice that it's still red here when I entered her first name. So if I refresh my browser, Control R on the keyboard, or click on this Save button, which does the same thing, you can see now that Rose's name is not red anymore. And that's your job, to address all the red. Here you can see the next red item is her address. So her current address should be what she had written at the beginning of her interview sheet. So let's go back here. And you may want to confirm the address by looking at other tax forms, but those other tax forms may have older addresses, and her current one should be on the interview sheet. 2715 Bishop. If you like, you can keep the caps lock key on your keyboard. I like to turn mine off because it just confuses me. Okay, in the next line, it doesn't ask for city, but it asks first for the zip code. And here it says your city, your state, your zip code. So I'm going to just enter our Pearl City zip code, 96782. And when I tap the tab key, notice in the next field, it automatically will enter the correct city and state based upon the zip code I entered. So it tries to automate some of the things here on our screen. If you have a phone number right here, I want it entered into our computer system. Where's her phone number? Right here. So just in case I need to contact the taxpayer later, I can call the taxpayer. Well, here I'll just enter my office number for now, 4450294. Okay, and next red field, her age coming off of the interview sheet. That's April 16, 1988. And when I refresh my screen, Control R, notice in the next line, here it'll confirm her age at the end of 2011. Occupation, the next red blank, right here in field number 6 of the interview sheet. Manager. Again, I'll just save it, I'll refresh later to get rid of the red. Going further down, here this presidential election campaign question. I really wish they asked this question on the interview sheet at the top, but if you look further down here at the bottom of page, this is really page 2 of the interview sheet. Here's the question, and she checked off yes. So I gotta check it off also here for her, yes. The next section on the main information sheet is the filing status. And there's no box here on our interview sheet to tell you what the filing status is. There is marital status and household information, but based upon she being single and then she is not claiming any dependents, I'm pretty sure, if I have a copy of her last year's tax return, I would look at it, that she is filing as a single filing status. And notice all the other filing statuses are still red. So if I refresh my screen, here you can see the red is turned off for those other filing statuses. And automatically, here in line 6 of the main information sheet, it's checked off for her that she's claiming her own personal exemption. Now be careful here. You would confirm with the taxpayer right here in question 13 of the interview sheet. Can anyone claim you or your spouse on their taxes? And here she says no. So we're assuming that she will be claiming herself. Now if she checked off yes here, like a parent can claim her as a dependent, what you would do here in the next line, check if A, you can be claimed on another person's return. So if you check it off, and if you refresh your browser, save the return, notice that this checkbox for her personal exemption is turned off. Keeping in mind that any one person can be claimed only on one tax return for each year. So if, let's say, Rose is claimed by her parents as a dependent and she tries to claim herself, whoever files the return, tax return afterwards, a second return filed, that return is going to be rejected by the IRS. So typically we have families coming together to our VITA site, and what the tax preparer should be doing is confirming with each other that no person is being duplicated as an exemption. If you look at someone's income and it's relatively low, it's not enough to support themselves, that's an indication that maybe that person is being claimed as a dependent on someone else's return, and here possibly this should not be checked off. Otherwise, someone's return is going to be rejected by the IRS. In the case of Rose, she's claiming herself. We're pretty sure about that. We confirm with her that she's not being claimed by her parents. So let me save the return. And it looks like we did confirm that by asking her some questions here. Let's see if I can find that information. Rose is not married. She moved into her own apartment in March of the year. So she's supporting herself for most of the year. Her parents supported her until the end of February. So even though she may be a full-time student, she wasn't supported for a semester, which may qualify certain people to be dependents. Okay, so looks like she's supporting herself. She's not being claimed as a dependent, so now she can claim her own exemption. Okay, so she's not claiming any dependents, so we leave this blank area blank. Okay, and I think we're well, here. Hawaii should be automatically filled in for us when we do real returns here for preparing state tax returns. And if you don't want a state return prepared, you would check off this box here. Okay, now a Hawaii return will be prepared. Now only a federal return will be prepared. Okay. Most of the returns we do prepare are going to be electronically filed, so this would be the default for the real tax-wise online. But for practice lab, doing this paper return is okay. Now if we need the permission of the taxpayers to electronically file, so they physically have to be present when we do the return so they can sign off on a form giving us permission. And if the taxpayer is not there for whatever reason, we can print out a couple paper returns and give it to them, and they can sign and mail in one copy and keep the other for their records. If we e-file, we still print out one copy of the tax return for their records. But again, most returns we prepare are going to be e-filed, and when the IRS is trying to promote that. If you want the refund to be direct deposited into the taxpayer's bank account, you need to fill in these two blanks over here. Basically, you're reading off numbers from the bottom of a check for that account. Here's some information that's already filled in for us if you were doing an e-filed return. And the very last thing you would do for an e-filed return, once the return is reviewed by the taxpayer, is to electronically sign it for them by typing in any 5-digit number in this box here, checking off they're authorizing us, and typing in the date you're preparing the return. And if it's a joint return, you would do the same thing down here for the spouse. Okay, so that's the bottom of this main information sheet. Now if I go to the next item that's read here, this Form 1040 page 1, here's just reminding us that Hawaii is not ready yet to prepare their returns through TaxWise. Here at the top of the 1040 form, you notice that Rose's name and address and social security number are already filled in. These green fields, the green lines, are automatically filled in by some other form feeding that line. Filing status is single. Presidential campaign election fund already checked off. She's claiming her own exemption, a total of 1 on her tax return. And the first box or first amount we need to enter is here in line 7, her wages from her job. And notice it's green, the line is green. But if you click on that line, you notice this icon popping up on the side, meaning there is a form you can fill in to feed into this line 7. So if I click on it, right now here in this existing tab, there is no form feeding into or linked to line 7. So we're going to make a new one here. Here, this new tab, and lots of different forms to feed into line 7. But the main one for wages is a W-2. Clicking on W-2 opens up a W-2 form for our one taxpayer rows. And let's see. Again, the red should be attracting your attention, but before looking at this red, notice up here the address we had entered from the main information sheet should match up with what's on all our form addresses. So if you go down to her W-2 form, just confirm it's the same address. And if not, you gotta put in that old address up here. And you do that by turning on, let's see, check this box here. And if I refresh my screen, now this green lines will turn blue, meaning that you can override and type in something new, and whatever you type in up here would automatically feed and replace the old address down here. But in her case, it's correct. The address is still the same. Okay, so I'll leave it unchecked. Okay, ID number we're given here as 100, and notice the X's. That means you gotta use your Practice Lab user ID number. And let's see, wages, box 1. Again, what I'm doing is trying to match it up. Here's box 1, $31,914.52. You can round here up to $15, but I'll let the computer do it. I typed in the cents, and if I refresh my browser or click on the save button, notice how it gets rid of the cents and rounds it up 50 cents up to the next dollar or below 50 cents down. It just chops off the cents. Federal withholding in box 2 we're told is $29.85.75. I'll just save it later so it'll round it for me. Notice that box 3 and 5 is already filled in for me. Notice the green line is just copying the number from the top in box 1 down here, and based upon these amounts it's figuring out the tax, which matches rounded what's on my paper form down here. But if it doesn't, what you gotta do is here check this box to take the calculation off of boxes 3, 4, 5, and 6. When you do that, now you can type in the correct amounts down there. I believe it will turn the green line to a blue line. Anything else on our form here? Oh, notice this name here. It's already filled in. So that means someone had already typed in this number in the online service. It recognized this number and automatically filled it in for us. And if it didn't, you gotta type it in. Okay, this Jack right here is automatically being filled in. Notice the green here by using the first 4 letters of this employer name here. Okay, anything else we need to fill in? Sometimes preparers miss this area here with a code letter and some dollar amount. In our case, it's empty. Likewise, these check boxes here, always double check them. They're empty, so we leave ours here empty. What we do need to fill in is the state. So this YS means your state, which is Hawaii. We're given the ID number 234567899. Notice that the state wages right now is 0 with the green line, but because we've just filled in this items here and then refresh our screen, it should copy that box wages at the top down here. And I see sometimes preparers missing this state income taxes. Here it's 287. The typical way you catch this mistake of this being left out is when the taxpayer owes state taxes and they wonder why. In the past years, they always got a refund. Well, the most obvious thing is that the tax preparer didn't put in the taxes that were withheld on the W-2 form. Okay, so always double check this number here. So I think we're done with this W-2. You can see off here on the tree. So if I jump back to the 1040 form, page 1, in line 7, you should see the federal wages we had entered back on the W-2 form. The next amount we need to enter is the interest coming from the 1099 form, rows received. Notice the two amounts here, this regular interest in box 1 and this savings bond interest in box 3. Savings bond interest is taxable to the federal government, the IRS, but non-taxable to state returns. So we got to be able to show that here on the return. So here in box 8, notice the black line. We could actually type in an amount, but if I click in that line, you see the green arrow pointing off to the side. That means we have a connecting or linked form. Connecting or linked form. Nothing here existing, so I go to new, and the form that feeds into that line 8 is a Schedule B. Okay, here we are in Schedule B. I don't know why this is red, seller financed mortgage. If you sold your home and you lent the money to the lender, you would be receiving interest income from that buyer, and you're the seller collecting that interest. But we have none, so we're going to turn off this red. And now the keystroke I'm showing you, you have to use very conservatively. You click in the box, you want to turn off the red, and on your keyboard you hold down the control key and you tap your space bar, and that turns off the red. But make sure you know what you're doing when you're turning off this red now. Typically you would type in something. In this case, I know we don't have any seller finance mortgage interest. Now regular interest is typically entered here in this line B, and I click on it, you can see that connecting link, no existing form. So go to the new tab, and what we have is not a 1099 form we fill in, but this interest statement. And here on the interest statement, each row would represent one 1099 INT form. So here we have people's. You try not to put in any punctuation marks here, like apostrophes or dashes for names. People's Federal Bank. And if you do type in punctuation marks, sometimes it just rejects the return for whatever reason. I don't know why. Box 1 or 3, box 1 or 3. I'll put this in two separate lines here. So in box 1 is $21. And we don't have to do anything else, I believe, here for the rest of the row. In box, in the next line, I'll just copy and paste it into the next line here. Box 3 is $15. Now a total of $36 of interest is going to show up on the federal return. But this $15 is non-taxable for Hawaii or state purposes, so only $21 should be taxed. And the way we make this adjustment here is by either increasing or decreasing the state amount. So we're going to decrease minus $15 here. So it wipes out this second line for the state purposes because savings bond interest is state tax free. But if I go back to the 1040 form, line 8, you'll see the total of $36 of interest being fed by that worksheet. See anything? Notice it's red over here. That means there's something still needs to be worked on this form 1040 page A, and it's right here in red. And it's asking us whether we had deducted itemized deductions last year. That's for 2010, and she didn't itemize, right? I think there's one of the questions on the tax return, so we would say no. And if you refresh your screen, sorry about the noise, somebody's cutting grass outside. My neighbor. Oh. Hang on for a second. Okay, I'm back. still have a noisy neighbor, but I was logged out, so I logged back in, so you can't see my zip code. Here on the page 1 of the 1040, line 9, it's asking you whether or not the refund, if you received any, is taxable. And that's based upon whether you had deducted the state taxes that you're getting back now, deducted last year, 2010. And even if you get a refund, if you didn't itemize, you would answer this as no. Okay. Let's see if I refresh, I can get rid of the red. Okay, the red is gone here, and also now this is a green check mark, indicating that we're probably okay. So I think I am done. Let me go through this tree here of forms. I don't see any red. I don't see any red on the forms. This is a message down here that's red, but that don't apply. Okay, so this is the first page of the 1040 form. Page 2, the total income here at the top, automatically subtracting out a standard deduction and one exemption, this $3,700, to get the taxable income. The taxable income is looked on the tax table to get this tax. And remember, the taxes she already paid through her W-2, the withholding, it's already here, this amount, which is larger than the taxes she owes for the year, the tax liability. So the difference is an overpayment she gets back as a refund. That overpayment can be also confirmed here in this box here. Okay. Now in the real TaxWise Online, there would be another button up here called Diagnostics, or Run Diagnostics, to run a test, and it will point out possible errors that we would have to fix. We can also print out the form. There will be a print button up here. Okay, so for our practice lab, though, we don't have that. So you basically have to work off the screen now and answer the questions in the exam book. In the case of this practice exercise, let's see if I can get some confirmation here. Let's see. Here's the answers to the practice, not the exam questions, but the practice problems. We're looking for Rose Hudson. And you can match it up with these amounts here, and if I scroll down, I should see that $40 here, refund. So I'm pretty sure I did this return correctly. And you can practice with other practice returns like these here that are in the workbook. But you would definitely want to use Practice Lab to prepare the returns for the exam. Okay, so if you have questions, you can contact me. Otherwise, I'll see you at the training site, training day, January 14th and 21st.